This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The notice for this special meeting was emailed to the West Orange Chronicle and the Star Ledger on May 6, 2021. Councilwoman Castellino,
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Present.
Councilman Rutherford.
He's present.
Oh,
Connecting to audio.
she is present. Councilwoman Williams,
Present.
Council President Matute Brown.
Present. I'm going to open the floor first to Councilwoman Williams. She just wants to share some information.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to make sure the public is aware that at some point during this meeting, I will be off camera, but still listening in. My daughter is having one of her senior proms, so I have to do double duty with family and town council, but I will be listening in, attentive and responding if necessary till about 6:20 p.m. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Exciting.
And just so that we all know, I don't know if everyone or when the public listens, Councilwoman Williams has sat in on budget hearing meetings for a number of years, so I'm sure she's very well familiar with the process. So congratulations, and I'm sure everything's going to look beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe that explains the glasses.
Council President, we'll be done by 6:30, right?
Sure.
Okay, good.
You might not even have to come back, Councilwoman. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our 2021 budget hearing. I just some housekeeping for and reminders. I intended to send an email. Today was one of those crazy days. I'm going to ask my council colleagues that when we talk about any salaries or increases that we don't talk by name, but by title. Last year it was very uncomfortable for, I'm sure, the staff that was on and all of us to speak to name and not title. So please, when we're, let's be mindful that when we're talking, we are talking by title. And Mr. Gross, we are going to do by department the summary overview. And I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Gross to open our budget hearing.
I know, Jack, did you want to say a couple of words before we got started?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say is I want to make sure everybody has a budget. Everybody got a copy of the budget. And
Yes.
as you all know, pages 2 through 24 are the changes. And if you look through those changes, some are increases, some are decreases. Page 25 will show you all the special requests that John will be talking about. Page 26 obviously is all the open positions that we have not filled yet. And page 28 is our budget revenues for 2021. So I just want to make sure everybody has the budget book, knows where all those things are on those pages before Mr. Gross gets started with talking about the budget.
Thank you. And before we move to Mr. Gross, Mr. Kaiser, you and I spoke earlier. Did I just say what we talked about, or there was going to be something else that you?
Well, let me mention a couple of things because truthfully, I'm not needed on this at this hearing, although I plan to stay on and be available. I'll stop my video and mute myself, certainly. But I just want to point out as a matter of law to the council that in order to cut from the mayor's budget, it only takes a majority vote. If you want to add to the mayor's budget, you need to have 4 votes at least. You have to have a supermajority. I want to point out that the legal line items in departments are salaries and wages and other expenses. When you get down to finer detail in that, you really don't need to, because those are the legal line items. And once you establish those numbers in each of those legal line items, the mayor has the power to spend within those numbers. Of course, if there's a salary increase during the course of the year or done at budget hearings, it will, at least if it raises the maximum salary, will require a new salary ordinance. So you still have input from that in that respect. I also wanted to point out that the organization charts that were prepared by the finance department are for budget purposes only. They're not intended to accurately reflect the precise chain of command or the precise manner in which departments communicate with each other, or the relationships between the various departments. They're only designed for budgetary purposes so that you can see positions and where they stand within a department. I think that's about all that I have.
Great.
Thank you. Mr. Gross.
Yes, Council President. I think video on, sound on, I think we're good to go.
We are good to go.
If everybody could turn to what is page 1, it's called the 2021 budget summary. Which is there's a lot of information on here. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to focus on the 2021 budget and hit the high level points. This year's budget being recommended by the mayor is a total budget of $93,988,482.56. That's up $3,311,992.13. That is put together, and now I'm going to get in kind of round numbers, $14 million of generally OE, $32.5 million of personnel salary and wage, $8.4 million of pension, $14 million of health benefit, and then $6 million of other operating expense that's not impacted by the cap, by a spending cap. The big drivers in this particular budget in terms of increased costs are the grants that we have for the year, which is $4.6 million, up almost $1 million from last year. And salary and wages are up a bit, up about $1 million, and pensions are up $680,000, and health benefits down $1.2 million. The mayor's recommended budget, this year is recommending no increase in taxes, recognizing the economics that everyone's experienced over the past 15 months with the COVID crisis. The mayor felt that we needed to, and since we were in a position to bring it in at a level point, we are. That is at a cost. The cost of that, you'll notice that last year, the amount of surplus anticipated in 2020 was $2.4 million, and this year, the amount that's being anticipated is $5 million. So we're basically taking from our savings in order to bring the budget in with no increase in taxes. That has future ramifications, but the mayor felt very strongly this year that it was important to try to give some type of relief to the taxpayers. We can entertain questions now for this, or we'll move forward. If at any time you have questions, just feel free to raise your hand or interrupt. I'm happy to entertain questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going.
Councilman Rutherford just raised his hand.
So I have a very simple question. It's on the surplus. Is that 5 million number a cumulative number, or is that 5 million out of this budget is slated or expected to be surplus?
$5 million of surplus that we have is being anticipated as revenue.
So
think of it as at your home, you have a savings account, and you're looking at what you're going to spend during the year, and you run short of money that you have, so you're going to take money out of savings to fill out the gap for the things you're going to spend for the year.
So The total amount of surplus we have is 5 million.
No, that's how much we're using.
More than that.
We're using 5 million of our existing surplus account in this budget.
We have $8 million in surplus right now.
Got it. Thank you.
5 of the 8 million that we have.
Got it.
Okay. If you want to go, what we'd like to do next is take a look to roll through the budget on the basis that Ken talked about, salary and wage and OE, and highlight the areas that have changed. So if you go to page 2, you'll see the different departments with salary and wage and OE. And each line has just to orient you, has last year's adopted budget, the amount spent to date for 2020, the 2021 departmental request, and the 2021 mayor's recommendation. So let's take the first line to go through this just to get oriented to it. The first line, which is the mayor's salary and wage, last year the adopted budget was 107,218 and 216, which we spent every dollar of that. And this year the request is for $109,700. The mayor's approving that request, and that's a change of 2.3%, up $2,484. Now, that is an increase in that budget, but it is not a change in that budget, in the sense that we have all of our collective bargaining agreements and salary ordinances dictate for the year 2021 have already been settled and dictates what our employees are going to be paid. So based on the employee count that we have, that is a number that 2.3 represents the increase for this department for that year. And that can't be changed unless you eliminate positions. So if the head count in our table of organization remains the same, then these are the salaries that must be paid. So this is not considered a change, if you will. It is, the budget itself is going up, but it is an increase that is dedicated until such time as there's a change in staffing.
Mhm.
So if you go to the next one, the public information officer is at 0. That's not because we're not spending money on public information officer, but at some point in the past, a few years ago, we consolidated some lines together because we had budgets that were, full departmental budgets were about $3,500. Didn't make sense. So we condensed those. So you go to the next, is the town council's budget. Again, a good example of all these same thing, the beginning, last year's adopted budget, how much we expended last year, the departmental request, and the mayor's recommendations. So there's really not much to see on this page because there's nothing really that is changing or change that you have control over in terms of deciding whether you want to do something or you don't want to do something. Again, unless you're looking to change the programs that we do and reduce staffing. So if you go to page 3, you'll note that it's pretty much the same as the previous page, except there's a highlight of on the planning board. There's where we've highlighted $52,500. That is a change that's to be made. It's a choice that the mayor has recommended to add to the budget, and it relates to a decision for the council to make as to whether or not you want to increase the budget by that amount. So if you go to the next page, which is page 4, you'll see where I've highlighted that $52,005, and that is $15,000 for, which is under the master plan reexamination line 092, and $37,500, which is under the planning / economic development line 093. The 37.5 is anticipation of hiring economic development coordinator during the year. It was an annualized rate anticipated. If we had done this at the beginning of the year, it would be $150,000. But since we got to a point and realized that a quarter of the year was over, that was reduced to 112,500. Reality is it probably could go a little lower because you're not going to hire anybody now until close to mid-year at the earliest. So that actually could go a little bit lower. The additional $15,000 for under the master plan reexamination line is placed there, some of which you've already spent. You authorized Paul Greigel to do a study on it, to restudy the area in the downtown to make some refinements in that. And we added another 7,500 in because frankly, I get the sense that there's going to be more activity in the planning area this year. So I wanted to make sure that we had some funds set aside for that. And those are the only changes on this sheet. If you go
Can I
to,
ask-
yes.
Sorry. Well, can we have a discussion now, or should we hold, how do you want to do this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so as you're saying, to hire someone at this point in time and town hall not even open, is that something we might want to consider since we did not renew Paul's contract? Do we want that money to broaden the scope of Paul's work?
I'm going to jump in and say we certainly need a discussion about the consultant's position, that is Greigel's firm. In this case, we absolutely need someone in the office to be able to streamline the day-to-day activities for the planning board, as well as what happens in the zoning board, particularly when we're looking at so many different projects that are on the horizon. Some are already happening. So I don't think that it's not a good idea to hire someone to oversee the Office of Economic Development. So I'm not going to support I'm supporting this $112,000. And I know that as Mr. Gross said, because we haven't hired anyone, this will probably be lower towards, the middle of the year, but I am going to be very supportive of having this position filled this year.
I'm a little confused on when you say that you want to hire someone to oversee the department, because that sounds so administrative to me, that was not my, I guess, definition of an economic developer.
So an economic development manager has to oversee the day-to-day workings of an office, and in conjunction with and coordination with the planning director, which and again, like I said, we'll have a discussion about the planning director's position, which we tabled. It wasn't voted down, it was tabled, but it would still need a planning director. This is an economic developer, and as I said, when I had the conversation with our consultant, this was about what he felt was the best practice in all of the other municipalities that he works with. It helps facilitate all of the work that the planning board does, the zoning board does, as well as the planning director, and just bring together everything in a streamlined fashion so that we know what our goals are in spending as well and planning.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I would
welcome.
like to see a definition on that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Councilwoman Castellino.
So, I don't know how to get rid of the little hand there. Oh, there it is. So I am in agreement with the council president. I want to hear from administration a plan. I requested at the last meeting. I think for now, my recommendation is we leave this line item, see what they bring back to us, because if all of you had a chance to look at your organizational chart and see, the vacancies and the voids in that department, I don't know what administration wants to recommend to us, but, I am agreeing something does need to be done.
Mhm.
So if we could just leave it, we could, for now and, see where the recommendation lies. So thank you, Council President.
And thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to see a job description of what the administration
Yeah.
expects from the economic development manager. That's what we're calling it. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Oh.
Councilman, did you raise your hand or were you just adjusting your screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll raise my actual hand this time. I'm not confident in the technology today.
I hear you. Okay, so do we need a vote? There wasn't a motion made to not support this.
That was just a discussion and it was. Are we doing this voting page by page?
No.
Okay.
If there is, something that any of my council colleagues feel strongly about that they want to vote down, but if this was just a discussion, so.
Yeah, if I would recommend that if everyone is in agreement, if there's an agreement with a recommendation from the mayor, that we leave at the end, anything that is not otherwise voted on, you vote on en masse at the end, and that way.
Mhm. Okay.
Try to streamline the discussions. So,
Thank you.
if we move on to page 5, you can see there's nothing marked up here. The only thing as far as changes are concerned are salaries and wages in the municipal court line. And again, they're all contractual and or by ordinance. Moving on to page 6, again, same situation. Everything here, the changes that exist are strictly only salary and wage changes. We go to page 7. Again, so to the extent we're going through this, there are only 15 in the entire budget changes. So we've already gone through, I think, 2 of the 15. We have another 11 or 12 left. So 2 of them on this page. We have a reduction in health insurance costs of $1,276,782.78, and an increase in our liability costs in $60,000. If you go to the next page, page 8 and page 9, there's a lot of data in there. This is all about our health benefits that we provide to our retirees and to our employees. And this is very, very detailed. As I said, the bottom line is that our costs are down from last year, $1.2 million. That's primarily from the Medicare Advantage program that we went into this year, which is reducing a big chunk with our retirees. There are also some savings that we've able to establish through our Meritain program, where they actually are able to negotiate cost cuts for us that we would normally pay or did have paid, and they go back in and renegotiate with providers based on their network. So I certainly entertain any questions you may have about this. Like I said, it's an awful lot of data, but this is the data, and we're presenting to you the same day-to-day information and data that we use to manage. So while it certainly is detailed, it's the kind of detail that provides us what we need in order to make intelligent decisions about how we manage the programs moving forward.
Councilman.
Thank you. John, on page 9, it is line 100, the other contribution, how is that zero from 2020 and then minus 741,000? How does that? When I read that.
Minus 741 is anticipated savings. So we don't know exactly where the savings are going to come from. As I mentioned to you with Meritain, we have contracts with them where they go in and they negotiate savings on our behalf.
Okay.
So we don't know exactly which lines that are going to go in. And a lot of this is, I don't want to say it's guesswork, but it's we estimate based on the data that we have. So that's what that's there. That's why that's there.
John, can you just say Meritain, is that our excess liability carrier?
No, Meritain is our TP, our third-party administrator.
Okay, thank you. And John, I just wanted to share with the council colleagues, the other 6.4% has to do with the JIF, the Joint Insurance Fund, right? The line 2534.
2,000 is an increase from the Joint Insurance Fund. Some of that is a normal year increase. The other, another part of it is our liabilities are kept by the year, and every year a year expires. Like for instance, 2016 closed out this year, and in that 2016 there was a loss that all the members had to make up percentage-wise. Next year, in 2017, there might be a surplus, in which case we would get a credit. So it's you can't really. It's tough to judge that on a long term, or to look at 1 year and say, oh, you know, that's a big jump. But it's to be expected in this type of an arrangement where you have you are self-insured through the JIF.
And I also wanted to say, I was actually this is my third budget. I was actually very excited when I saw the reduction in this budget section for health insurance of over $1 million. So thank you for making sure that we moved to the Medicare Advantage plan, which that alone saved the administrative cost of almost $300,000. So that was really great to see. I know I typically don't say that in this section.
No.
We appreciate that.
Listen, I like to do positives as well. It's not just all, so thank you for that.
Thank you. So if you move on to page 10, the only substantive change there is the mayor's recommending an additional $25,000. So one time, $25,000 to go to the downtown West Orange program, or to do work on some publicizing and basically PR that also may not be limited to just the downtown. So this is, we do not expect this to repeat in 2022.
Councilwoman Castellino, do you want to speak to it? Please.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Council President. So the Downtown Alliance, because of the increase in their SID assessment, they were able to hire a couple of consultants this year. One is our event planner, which is organizing the Downtown Thursdays through the summer. And one is another is the mobile app, and another is a PR firm by the name of Suasion. They also are going to accommodate us, and I had spoken with the mayor to see if he was interested in assisting us with some town-wide exposure, which is needed. And we're already seeing great results. The farmers market the past 2 weeks heavily visited. I had the PR commission there on Saturday morning, some of our commissioners asking the residents how they heard about the market, just to get feedback. And a lot of it was this new Instagram marketing outreach with public relation pieces and a whole list of new outreaches to towns to bring more traffic into West Orange as far as visiting our stores and restaurants. So the mayor is, will, as you can see here, recommend to see how we do this year. We're also working on a cooperative marketing grant that this firm is going to work with Catherine Kapora, that we had a meeting on Tuesday. So, or actually, which was yesterday. So she'll be applying for the grant, and we'll see where it goes. So, just excited, a lot of great things happening in town, and we want to, it ties in with our economic development program, because it's not just marketing to bring folks in, it's also to bring in investors into the community to bring, more vendors to the farmer's market. So it's a very comprehensive approach. And so far, it seems to be taking off.
Awesome.
Councilwoman-
Thank you. Councilwoman McCartney.
Yeah, thanks. So this was one of my questions during the budget about, I thought that 25,000 was the budget for the Downtown Alliance and money allocated. So I was so pleased to learn that this is more comprehensive, as you said, Councilwoman Castellano, and just for a more townwide approach. So I was very pleased to see this because we've been talking about that for a long time. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gross?
If moving forward,
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
So John, I wasn't sure where you were going to go, but just on the very next line is the Environmental Commission. I see a lot of zeros there, but there had been money in that account. I'm hoping that there is still some money in that account because all of the projects that we were doing in conjunction with the schools kind of, are still in this limbo, but there's a meeting tonight that I'm missing. And I know that we are going to gear up for those projects that we started last January and got put on hold when the schools closed. So I'm hoping that there might be some funds, not a lot. We do need some to get those projects back underway.
yes, I mentioned a little earlier that there was a consolidation of a lot of smaller lines, together, and that's where those funds. So the amount of money that have traditionally been in those lines.
Okay. Thanks. I got a little nervous when I saw that, but then that holds true also for the Arts Council and the Historic Preservation. Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we move forward to page 11, this is a big page, police and fire, and the beginning of DP engineering and DPW. The only changes on these pages are salary and wage. There are some special requests in these pages. We'll talk about them later. Other than the special requests, all the salary and wages are contractual and legal obligations based on current staffing levels.
Mr. Gross, this also includes all the new hires of our police officers?
Any openings that we have are budgeted for, yes.
Thank you. And Chief, that was 12 officers that we were able to recruit from the academy?
Yes, we had 9 in the academy. 2 are already police officers in Irvington and East Orange, and we have 1 graduating from Morris because she got injured right, literally the weekend before she was about to start the academy at Essex. So she graduates tomorrow, and then we have 1 vacancy. One of our detectives left and went to Livingston PD, and one of our lieutenants is retiring as of July 1st. Those 2 prospective employees are in the pipeline. They have to go through their medicals and so on, but their background is pretty much done. So they'll start, I believe it's July 7th. And that will also be at Morris County just because of the timing. If we wait till Essex, we have to wait till September.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
So moving on to page 12. Again, pretty much the same. You have public works increases. Other than that, there are no changes to the previous year's budget.
Question with respect to the shade tree OE. Is that include the consultant?
That is exact. That's what those costs are. And I wanted to mention that we had talked about just meeting with this group here. However, this was such a hot topic. I did make arrangements with Mr. Lepore to come into the meeting later on.
Okay.
So he could explain. He has a new plan for this, and I know that the council is very interested in that plan. So I made an exception to what we had discussed and asked him to come in, but he won't be available for a bit. So if we could come back to that later, that would be terrific.
All right, thank you.
Really quickly, Council President, just
Sure, go ahead.
without getting into the details of the Forester, we budgeted 70,250 in 2020 and we spent 160. Shouldn't we be looking at the reasons why and making some adjustment to 21?
Well, this particular line has a history. Let me back up. If we were to budget for what our true needs for trees were, we wouldn't be able to spend much else. So, I mean, we couldn't possibly budget enough money to hit all the buttons. So what we do is we budget based on a historic number. I try to keep that number low because to keep some downward pressure, making sure that we're making good decisions about where we're spending that money, because we could spend it everywhere. So the board, the DPW, the director makes valued decisions about where to spend those funds. And then if indeed that value decision is, hey, we have no choice, this year we have to go over, then we talk about that and we do what's necessary based on the moment. So he'll talk a little bit about that when he comes later this evening. But my view on that is if we raised it, and we almost always go over. Sometimes this is a large year, but sometimes it's not so much. But we often go over because the fact is, the nature of the climate and the conditions of our trees, we just have a large need. But keeping the budget low keeps pressure on us to make sure we're making the best decisions how to spend that money moving forward during the year. So I want to make sure that we're in a position to afford to do the really important parts of this program.
So Bill, Bill, we started this conversation, you and I started this conversation. I do have more information and then we didn't pick up. I'd be happy to talk offline and then we'll hear more from the engineer later. But if you remember, we had started this conversation. So there is more to it.
And I'm happy to wait until Mr. Laporte can jump on, but I hope he will have some historical data to provide a little context, how much we've been budgeting, generally speaking, as well as how much we've actually spent, so we can get an idea of how much integrity this $70,000 item has.
I can tell you that $70,250 has been the budget for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So.
And we probably have we gone over each one of those years?
We've not every year, but a good number of the years we've gone over. We've not gone over necessarily to this amount. Keep in mind also that this is not the only place that we deal with trees. We have capital funds that deal with trees as well. So sometimes it's a balance of how much we've had to do on the capital side, and sometimes that need is higher, so it dribbles over to this particular budget as well. So it is and Lenny will talk to that in terms of how broad this program is. Okay, moving.
Councilwoman Castellini, I was watching you. I feel body language. She can talk.
Well, I want to make sure Councilman was done with his remarks, and just to support Councilman Rutherford, I've been inquiring and having conversations with Ms. Laporte because I agree. We need to do things a little differently and get historical background, plus also to see how we can move forward in regards to that department. So I'm looking also forward to hearing from Mr. Laporte. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. And I did share my questions with Councilwoman McCartney and Mr. Laporte via email last week, and look forward to that discussion as well. We're good, Mr. Gross.
Okay, so if we can move on to page 13, There are no OE changes on this. There's just a salary and wage. There is a special request for the health department. Otherwise, everything is just the normal contractual legal changes.
Okay.
Same thing for page 14. Salary only, our salary changes only. Otherwise, it is the same as last year. Go to page 15. We go down to community services and parks and playground. Go to, that's different, 3,800 for community service and 6,000 for parks and playground. If you go to the next page, that 3,800, and again, and I missed this last year and I missed it again this year. The West Orange Chamber of Commerce, it's not the Chamber of Commerce, it is the Rotary Club. And this is the $3,800 that we spent in support of their Christmas program. This was, the mayor had done this and promised this, or we did perform it, promised, and we did perform it when 2 years ago when we had the fireworks, and we invited in the food trucks for food for the fireworks, and the Rotary, who had used to sell different types of food during the event, suffered in their sales. So the mayor agreed, since we disrupted their budgetary process, that we would support them with their Christmas program last year.
Councilwoman Castellino.
Okay, so I hate to be the spoiler, but we had a whole, and I was a former Rotarian, full disclosure. So I support everything they do. They're a wonderful organization, as we have many wonderful organizations in the township. So we had a full discussion on this last year for our newer council colleagues. And we had came to a conclusion that we didn't want to start moving forward with something of this nature, because we just can't give to all the other community organizations. It just wouldn't be fair. So not to belabor it, but just a reminder, I was very surprised to see that figure in here, because we had made a decision last year that, as much as we would like to support it, we couldn't support it because of, all the other organizations. So I don't know if everybody still feels the same way, but, where we do need support now, I didn't realize Mr. Gross had it for me before on another page in the budget. OSPAC is getting more money for programming, because that is, as much support as we could give there, because we are actually, it's a service to the community that, from the township side of things, that we've been supporting with more programming. And with COVID, it worked out perfect last summer. And the more money we can move to that line item, the more activities we could have for the community as a whole. So my recommendation was going to be to move that line item up to OSPAC if it had support.
Councilwoman McCartney. Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Councilwoman McCartney. You're welcome.
Thank you. So when I saw line 220 with West Orange Chamber, I was a little surprised, because I know the chamber would be thrilled to have this, having a year of COVID and not having any events. And we have at least 4 out of the 5 that I chair. We did not do that and had very little fundraising efforts, but that's true also for the Friends of the Library, Friends of Thomas Edison National Historic Park. This made sense to me when we had the food trucks, that kind of pulled the rug out from under them. So I understood that. I too didn't know that we were going to move forward with that. And if we do move it, to kind of spread it around, if we are going to keep that in that, to spread it around to other fundraising arms for other local communities. I do like the idea of OSPAC, since it is a township-run program, that I think the fund should kind of stay in town. Mhm.
Thank you, Councilwoman McCartney. Councilman Rutherford.
Just a question to clarify this 206 OSPAC. So, I know COVID changed everything. Looks like they spent 2,300 of the 10,000 allocated. Does this new 10,000, are they now able to spend the unspent money from last year, or did that go into surplus? Or like, how does the unspent money from last year work?
Okay, so the money, the 10,000 that goes for OSPAC is not a contribution to OSPAC. That is money that we use to support the facility itself.
Okay.
There was additional money given last year through the rec program, an additional 5,000, and which we're recommending that to go up to 20 this year. This particular 10,000, 5 of this is for programs for them. They weren't able to spend it all last year, and so know that 5 portion that goes away. That can't be spent. That can only be spent on programs for the previous year. So of this 10,000, 5 of it will be used to support the facility. The other 5 is available for them for programs. Plus, the rec department is requesting, last year had 5,000 for programming at OSPAC and is requesting 20,000 this year for programming at OSPAC. And they work together with the people, the group that supports, that's running OSPAC. So.
And in general, it's use it or lose it, right? It's not like they get to carry something forward, no matter which one of these groups they are.
We can pay bills for the previous year in the year following, but you can't initiate new projects for the previous year's money in this year.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to echo in, I don't know, especially for our newer council colleagues, if you've had the opportunity to review the financials that are provided by PVP. They were provided earlier this year. The cost of one production is incredibly expensive. And they do this by selling $5 ticket sales sometimes to encourage residents to participate in their activities. I certainly agree with respect to what Councilwoman Castellino said. The Rotary Club should find other avenues to fundraise, but I think that any funds that are available should go to township own properties, programming. And I know that whenever we take funds from Park and Rec, that's something less that they don't get to do, right? So I want to be supportive of Councilwoman Castellino's request to move the 3,800 to programming for OSPAC this year. And, considering that they only have 5,000 for programming, the 3,800 for programming would really be helpful. Everyone that is at OSPAC, including the board, are all volunteers, and they're always struggling trying to find volunteers. And by finding volunteers, I mean everything from cleaning up to setup. The volunteers there are bringing their own toilet paper, their own toilet bowl brushes and cleaners. So I really do think that, and they do that out of their pocket, and we should not have that expectation, because this is a community service. So I'm going to support Councilwoman Castellino's request to move the 3,800 to OSPAC, so that at least they have a little over 8,000 towards programming, which I can tell you is not enough for one production, looking at their financials.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for looking at that and recognizing that need.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, hold on. I have to do a roll call. Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams? She there?
Oh, she could be taking her pictures now.
Yeah, that's
Should we
okay.
go?
Council President Matute Brown.
Yes.
So that's
And
4
Tammy,
yeses.
it's
Oh,
5
hello.
yeses.
Did you hear me?
5. I did. I just couldn't get off mute quick enough.
Okay, that's okay. And what was your vote?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's
Thank
a
you.
5-0 vote.
Thank you,
Councilwoman
Councilwoman. Thank you.
Collins.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for bringing that up, Councilwoman Castellino. Greatly appreciate it.
And Council President, I have something else on this page that isn't always popular, but I don't know how we'll resolve it because I just hit Mr. Gross with it before the meeting, because I just realized it today when I was going back reviewing everything this afternoon. So, and again, great organization. They do a lot for us, but the West Orange Community House, last year with COVID, we gave them 40,000. They provide some services. We had COVID last year. They still got paid the 40,000. Although Powell Mountaintop they did have their programs. I asked Mr. Gross to let us know if they had any programming last year, because did they utilize that 40,000 from last year? Is that just sitting, in the bank and they didn't utilize it? So just to get us some information, not that, in case we need anything from a line item for something else. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, and we don't have to answer it today. We could always approve it today and not spend it when it comes up. But I would like a few answers from Mr. Gross, because we also need the reports from all three organizations, the financials from Mountaintop, PAL, and the Community House.
Councilwoman is correct. And just for an FYI and a reminder, that these lines for these contributions or these support, it is done by resolution of the governing body. So before these would ever be paid out, there would be a resolution come to you. And as part of that, they're required to provide their activities for the previous year. So that would be included in that. We'll endeavor to get that information right away. But just so you know, even if it didn't, usually these get paid out in late summer, early fall, and with that comes their annual reports. So, but we will get that information for you.
Councilman Rutherford. Thank you, Mr. Gross. Councilman Rutherford.
So if I understand clearly, even though it says they spent the 40,000, we're not sure that they spent the 40,000? Is that?
We spent the 40,000.
We spent it. We don't,
Yeah.
okay, we gave it to them. We've not gotten a report back on how it was spent on their end.
These are contributions, and it's usually you report back the year after what you did, what was your activity in that year. So that's the normal course of events. Historically, that number was 45. Last year, there was a decision to take 5 of it to go down to 40, and that's where the 5 for OSPAC came from last year.
Got it.
This is a continuation, I guess, of that discussion.
And Councilman Rutherford, just for the reason why we did that was because the Community House, since they opened their building, they receive rentals for their site, even though it doesn't cover all their expenses. Again, that's the whole reason why we get the reports back. I know with the PAL and the Mountaintop, because they provide recreation for the township programs, otherwise the recreation department would have to supply those programs. That helps to cover their insurance cost, their certificate of insurances. Community House also gets block grant money from us. So like I said, I don't mean to want to pick, they're a great organization. They do a lot of great things. But I know they were also, shut down because of COVID. So I just wanted to get a pair of eyes on it. That's all.
Community House also receives funding from the Municipal Alliance as well. And in that, it is required that the township do a cash match for the Municipal Alliance grant money. So it is, Councilwoman Castellino, all of the things that she just enumerated, that there is other sources of funding for the Community House in addition to the 40,000 that's allocated. So I agree that we need to have further discussion on what we're approving, because when you look at, you know, the senior citizens, I'm sure that that department can use additional funds to have greater programs, especially the outdoor programs that are now required, you know, and certainly, well, not required, but enjoyed by everyone. I think that we can have that discussion as we move along. But I agree, Councilwoman Castellino. Councilwoman McCarthy, did you have your, I'm sorry. Did you have
Yes, thank you. I was going to say similarly, I'm glad that that was brought up also, because the Mountaintop and PAL continue to have their programming and their tryouts and things during the year. So I feel like that money, they did put that to good use. The community house, I know it's quite a large operation, but we are in the same line of work. And last year, COVID had a dramatic impact on our line of work. So I would certainly like to see their reporting of the 40,000 that was expended as we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Gross?
Okay. As I mentioned previously, parks and playground, there was a request for increase of $6,000. That's on page 17. That's $6,000 to pay for basically a mailer, a nice document to send out to each and every home, talking about the programs that we're planned to have in the recreation program in the coming quarter, and to give people make sure people know what we're doing, so that we can get as much participation as possible, especially given that, you know, for a year we've basically been not operating. So, we wanted to make sure that word got out. So that's what that $6,000 request is.
And I certainly appreciate it actually being a physical mailer, having attended the meeting with Councilman Rutherford at Rock Spring. Some of the residents did share concerns that not everyone accesses social media. So this type of communication for residents is very, it was requested and certainly needed. And for all of the programming that the rec department does, it will benefit our community. So I'm happy to see that there. Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you. On that point with the mailer, I know that the mayor's office sends out a new resident package, and maybe with this new marketing fund, that there could be some kind of brochure or something that gets put in that package that goes out to the residents. For that very reason, that they have something in their hands that they know. You're shaking your head no or yes?
Councilwoman Castellino is shaking her head no.
Well, unfortunately, I was under the impression that was still happening, and now that's only done, it's only provided online, and it's something that we're trying to make happen again, because when we go back to, I don't want to get into going backwards, but discussion about trees and whatnot, and new residents coming in not knowing what our tree ordinance is, we're not getting that, not getting that package anymore. So again, this is all something that we could make sure happens.
Yeah, especially with the new marketing firm or marketing category that we have here. Thank you.
Can I ask a question on
yes, Councilman Rutherford.
Line 120, materials play, I guess that, I don't know what calcium maybe, I don't know what that is. We spent 27.6 last year. We budgeted 13. So when I see numbers like that, it makes me wonder why, you know, have we taken into account, was that just a one-time thing? Is that a one-off that, you know, it's over 100% greater expenditure than anticipated? And what are we doing to make sure that this 13 has integrity?
Well, you have to keep in mind that this, this budget for OE is, go back up here a second. The budget for OE is 150,727.
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry?
Is that the clay for the high school field?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So this, and these sublines are nothing more than plans. They're estimates that we put forward at the beginning of a year without necessarily knowing what the challenges are. So out of this 157 last year, let me go back up here. Out of the 157.27, we only spent 93,000. So, you know, there are a lot of things we didn't do, and there was things we did do, and we did more of. And that's kind of the nature, especially when you're talking about fields and your structures. The whatever you might plan or estimate because of weather changes, because of usage changes, because of a lot of changes, that may or may not be higher or lower, especially when you look at the number of sublines this particular budget has in it.
I understand that. I'm just, you know, if we're making an estimate, if we're not taking into account how that particular line can be affected year to year, we don't have any real integrity in the estimate. And so, you know, like it's just, I know it's we're looking at a $90 million budget, and this is a $14,000, you know, expenditure above the estimate. But, you know, all of those things add up. I'm trying to get an accurate understanding of, you know, what the expectations are. And when you see a number that's that outsized, it makes me wonder, you know, do we have real integrity in some of these estimates?
Well, again, this is a plan. And, you know, if we could take this and dissect it down even further. And the more you dissect it, the more off variance you're going to have. So because you get the consistency in your numbers based on almost like insurance. You know, the reason insurance company works is because they know, because they have 100,000 people, that here's what's going to happen with 100,000 people. That if you broke them down into hundreds, you'd have a lot of variances between them. So this is a particular department. Some departments aren't broken down that refined. This particular one is. And the reason it is because the department uses it as its gauge for you know, its purchasing and for its programming to keep an eye on it. So I understand why there's a variance. I understand what $14,000, despite whether $14,000 is nothing to sneeze at, even if it's a $93 million budget. But if it was 14,000 and we were over in our budget, or we were, you know, if that pushed us over our total budget, certainly we'd be more concerned about that. You know, the other question is, from a programmatic point of view, what's the conditions of our fields? If you came back to me and said, hey, the fields are really in crappy condition and we're spending all this money, well, that's a different conversation. But I don't think that's the case. And, you know, this particular line, as Councilwoman was going to mention, is the clay for ball fields. And, you know, it may, and again, I don't know the answer to that, your question as to why. And it's certainly something I can find out and get you an answer for. But I'm gonna go out on a limb saying that the fields were not used much last year, and it was an opportune time to get some of this stuff done when people weren't using it. But that,
right, which makes perfect sense, right? But just wanted to know what those factors are.
Councilwoman Castellano.
Because Mr. Keo and I have a very good relationship and always going back with these fields. So, Councilman, I don't have the exact answer, but I'm sure Mr. Gross will get it. But I'm pretty sure, I know he did a lot of field work this past spring, as he said, and we replaced the field at the high school, which we approved in the capital budget. But the clay, you know, that when I saw the clay there, I know they replaced the pitcher's mount. because the town, that's one of our joint projects that we do. I could be mistaken, but it has to be a one-time kind of use, which he does. So I'm sure he'll be able to answer it. But he was doing a lot of catch up with a lot of projects this past year, because he had in the early spring, he didn't have his players on, in use. So he was able to do that.
Which makes perfect sense. Just looking to see what that reason is. That absolutely makes sense when they're not using it to take advantage of that opportunity. You couldn't have foreseen it when you did the budget, so I get it, but just want to get to the heart of that. And just expect that every single time we have an estimate of X and we spend about 100% more than that, I'm going to have pretty much the same question.
Absolutely.
And you'll hear your council colleagues, except those that are more seasoned or like Councilwoman Castellino, who is in touch more frequently because she's the school board liaison, because we have shared services with the Board of Ed. She might have insight that we don't, but certainly appreciate that insight. Councilwoman McCartney, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gross.
Okay, if we move on to page 18 and 19, as I mentioned before, there's a $15,000 request, and that's to increase the number of summer series we're going to sponsor at OPTEC, and going from 5,000 last year. We actually ended up spending 10 this year, and this year we want to go up to 20.
I'm really grateful that Bill did think about this, Bill Kehoe, because this is the first year that OSPAC has partnered, maybe because of COVID, has partnered with the high school to be able to open earlier. So they have an additional month that they are open, and obviously they're not going to be charging any rental fees to the high school or to any of our schools, because it's just good partnership, and it gives the students an opportunity to have a real outdoor theater experience. So this is a great addition to this budget, and I really appreciate that forward thinking and thoughtful process.
Yeah, nice.
Yep.
As we move on to page 20, there are a number of changes here to review. The first section are basically our retirement programs, our PERS retirement, police and fire retirement, and a follow-up of additional $9,000 for police and fire pension based on increases in retros from previous years, for a total of $680,000. This is statutory. You don't have any choice on that. It's not policy driven. It's not driven by the number of employees that you have now. It's driven by the number of employees you had 3 years ago. And so this is a pass through that's required and cannot be reduced. And in fact, you can't pass your budget by law unless it is budgeted for. The next item is a reduction of $601,000, and that is from our line of pending retro. There's 600. Last year we budgeted 601,000. We settled all of our contracts, so this year there's no need for any pending retro money. So that goes down to zero, and that coincidentally comes close to offsetting the pension cost, although there's no real relationship between the two of them. Further down our participation, and these are all out of cap costs. The joint sewer went up $42,000. Our minimum requirements for the library are up $46,000, 48,000, sorry, 48,425. And the last one is our tax appeal money up from 350, 650. That's a recommendation that I've made. We historically budgeted 50. About 5 years ago, I felt that we were in a position to reduce that down to 350. And for 5 years, it's worked out very well. However, with the return, now that we have a real estate that has gone up and the difference between assessed value and actual value has increased, that's what they call the ratio. That works out well for residential, but for commercial, it's not a good thing because it's more susceptible to commercial appeals. So I believe that we need to move this number back now up to the 650 from the 350. We got 5 years of relief, but going to 650 now and in the future should keep us in a good place, borrowing certainly until we get to the reval. Okay, moving forward to page 22. This page has either no changes, or to the extent there are changes, these are grants, the new grants either came or other old grants that didn't repeat. They have no budget consequence or almost no budget consequence because they're offset by revenues coming in for the grants. So these are basically in and outs, with the exception, I think there's a $254 match we have to come up with that from the taxpayer out of all of these. Yes.
I apologize. I wanted to ask you earlier today when we spoke, the Clean Communities grant, did we get that this year? Because I didn't see where it was budgeted. Did we receive monies? Because I know Nick Solis always applied for that.
Yeah,
Was it available? Did we receive it?
The Clean Communities, the Clean Community grants, they lag, but they come in every year, and yes, we do get them every year.
Okay, so we have somebody taking care of that now that he's gone.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, we do have a new recycling coordinator. He has to finalize the tonnage report to submit, and that hasn't been done yet. So
Okay.
we don't. Mhm.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
So I'm new to this. If I'm hearing you correctly, we're expecting to get that grant, but it's not reflected in the budget. Is that not what I just heard?
Some grant, if you get a grant award, we get an award, we can anticipate it before we receive the money. That's what you're looking at here. If we don't get an award, we can't anticipate it till we get the money.
Okay.
And so,
Got it.
and
But
that
we haven't been
that
awarded.
usually flows in the next year, because we're getting into the weeds, but money that comes in, that just comes in like the Clean Communities, goes into an unappropriated reserve, and you can't spend it even though you have it until you appropriate it, and that's usually in the next budget process.
Yeah,
So,
it lags.
Got it.
we have plenty of money already, so it's not, it's an entitlement grant. So we already have funds, so it's not that we're waiting for it to spend it. We have funds that we can spend while we go through this process.
Got it.
And Bill, to that, it's typically between $70,000 to $80,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the tonnage report is all about the amount of money that we save from recycling. Less the hauler has to haul away in trash.
Okay, if we move on to page 22, more of the same until you get to the very bottom of the page, and that is our capital improvement fund. Capital improvement fund is our down payment money on bond ordinances. Just as a refresher, when you most of the time, and not all the time, but most of the time when you adopt a bond ordinance, you're required to put down a 5% down payment in cash, basically, that you're not going to borrow. That money comes from the capital improvement fund. So what these funds $500,000 you see here are the funds for that. Again, there's no change from last year. But I just thought it would be a good point to focus on as we go through this process. The next page, page 23. This is near the end of the budget. This is the debt service, our deferred charges, and a reserve for collected taxes. Our debt service is up at this point, 804,000 for the year. That number is a statutory number, or it's regulated by statute. This is the number that is required to pay back to the people that lent us the money, or the organization, the groups that lent us money. We have to pay that back this year. That number is always a moving target, in the sense that we're going to go out in 2 more issues over the next 2 months. Because of the way deals are structured and premiums, that may impact what we have to pay this year, but it won't impact taxes because there's always an offset revenue from a premium to offset that. So this may not be the last figure you see for debt service because of what we're doing over the next 2 months, but it had the impact that it has on the tax rate will not change. Deferred charge is up 144,000. Again, last year we adopted a special emergency to pay for severance liabilities. What basically it's payout of sick and vacation for people that are retired. Last year it was coincidentally the same number, 720,000 that was in last year's budget, was also the amount that we had last year. So that has to be paid over a 5-year period, 144,000 a year, and that's why that went up 144,000. Again, that's not discretionary, it's not optional. Lastly, the reserve for uncollected taxes up 654,000, and that is a reserve we put aside for when the possibility of residents and property owners not being in a position to pay their taxes on time. And so we put in a reserve so to make sure that when the budget is adopted, we feel certain that we'll have the cash sufficient to pay the bills for that budget. That 654,000 represents the difference of about 0.5% in the tax collection rate, and that is a big number for a very small change. And if you recall, last year we did have two commercial businesses that did not pay their taxes that added up to $600,000. Actually, it was closer to $1 million altogether, but those two were $600,000 that we were behind where we normally would be. Hence, you're right around that same number here, and that's not usually coincidental. It's usually directly related to that calculation.
Councilwoman McCartney. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Bill.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Council.
Was Bill finished? I wasn't. Bill, did you have more questions?
Yeah, I just, I looked at on the first page in the budget summary, you have the same information on the reserve for uncollected taxes. And the reserve was 2.873 in 19 and the exact same number in 20. Can you help me understand how do you arrive at that number?
Planning. It's a plan, and it's part of our plan. If our tax collection rate is stable, and it has been historically, last year is the first year we've seen any significant move in it, or for a while, for quite a time. If the tax collection rate remains stable, then this number will remain stable. It's a choice. It's a choice I make. I mean, I could have done a calculation and maybe it came, 2,500 one way or the other different. To me, I like the idea when I formulate and when I prepare a budget to provide as much stability as possible. It makes the budget much more easy to understand when you look at just the changes and the substantive changes. You have a better sense of what happened during the year or what we plan to happen during the next year. So it is definitely a decision. It's a choice I make. This particular year, the number that I've calculated is the number. It is not a number that you have a choice on, but in years past we have, and I've tried to keep it stable.
And that is the amount that we have to draw down on, in case we don't know what the uncollected taxes will be, but that's where we make up the shortfall should there be one. Is that right?
Kind of. It's actually, we raise more money than we need because we're anticipating not getting it. So that if we hit the mark, we'll always have if we hit the mark exactly, we'll always have exactly the number of dollars that have been authorized for us to spend. So the goal is to do better this year and actually collect more so that we end up with putting that money back into surplus and next year being in a position to go back down to maybe the 2,873. The 2,873 is a number that is right around at 8.75%, or I'm sorry, 98.75% tax collection rate. And that's kind of where we've been. Sometimes it's 98.7, maybe it's 98.2, something in that range. So it is not a number picked out of the air. It is a calculated number, but it is, and to the extent that, like for instance, this year, it's a number that was calculated and it is the number. At some time in the past, the 2,873,587 was an actual number that was calculated, and we've done better since then. So we just carried it forward because not much better. We did up and down.
Right, a little bit. So, but in anything, if that money is not used, it does roll into surplus. Is that what I just heard you say?
If we collect more.
Right. We have a 99% tax collection rate. We don't need this 3 million or whatever this number is, 3.5 million. Whatever the delta is would then go into surplus.
That's correct.
Okay.
By law. I mean, we can only spend what's appropriated. So we can't, the bottom line, the 90, your next page is going to be, bottom line is 93,988,482.56. I don't care what happens next year. I can't spend any more than that without coming back to you and asking permission.
Got it. Thank you.
So that you.
Sorry, Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Were you finished answering Councilman Rutherford's? Because Councilwoman McCartney raised her hand. Councilwoman McCartney, you're on mute.
Am I? I'm not.
I thought you were. I didn't hear you.
Okay. Am I good? I'm good?
Yes.
Sorry. John, the educator in me came out with principal, bond principal. That's the leadership role, and principal PLE, I think, is our financial standard and guide. If we could correct that on there.
Understood.
Okay, so I was just going to put that in the chat, but I see your eyes are back and forth on different screens, so I didn't know that you would see that in the chat. So I had a question that's not really on this page, but before we went any further, we had those special tax, our tax appeal council, and No, I remember this was just in March recently. I guess I thought that this would be somewhere in a separate category, but I guess now it's just in a general fund where there were assessments on different properties, but particularly on those cell towers, where the settlement was a result of approximately 730,000 more in taxes and an additional 50,000 more moving forward each year. Where would that appear? I mean, that's substantial.
That's gonna go into surplus and juxtaposed to ones we didn't do so well with.
Mhm.
And that's one of, like, you know, we didn't get hit with that last year, but while I'm definitely interested on the affirmative appeals, I'm looking at the ones that went the other
Yeah.
way and saying to myself, that looks trendy to me. And so I don't want to wait until it's an emergency to start preparing for that. And the fact that we're able to do it and bring in the tax rate at being even, I felt that it was that we could make that step.
Balance it out. Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Castellino, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So, Mr. Gross, so last year with COVID, obviously we have a lot of vacancies in positions for this budget, and we were able to make it through last year because of not filling positions, because we didn't know where we were going to be with the collection. How confident do you feel this year moving forward with collections? Are you gonna, obviously we have need with certain positions to get them filled. Are you able to fill all the positions that are open, or are you, like, what's your plan? Are you gonna go a little at a time, or?
We have a page on that. If we can wait till,
Okay.
and we can address that when we get to, because I have all the open positions and some of them are already filled. But you know, when we produce the document, you know, or that particular page.
And I'll say my question then. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Rutherford.
Just before we move into the next section, on page 19, we went through it quickly. I didn't get a chance. I didn't want to interrupt. I'm still trying to learn this stuff. So we have another one of those expenditures that's like significantly higher than expectation for tree lighting. I can't understand 7706 versus 1200.
Yeah, well, we did the tree lighting different this year.
It was a bigger.
With the truck and the guy came, yeah, Santa came, yeah. That was for?
Yeah.
Santa to do the drive-by?
It was,
Yeah.
It definitely was an expanded program.
Yeah.
It was one of our first programs, you know, that we did after being out. So I think there was a desire to make it.
Yeah, we splurged.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, again, looking at the bottom line for this category, we budgeted 55.6 and only spent
21, right? Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. Just, you know, I told you if I notice it, I'm gonna ask about it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. That was it for me.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Under rolling in.
Yes, and it's rolling in. Mr. Gross.
Okay. So that includes all of the changes in the current fund budget. There is a second budget, which is in the document at the end. There's nothing listed to talk about because it's everything in it, and that's the pool budget. Is all the revenues and expenditures are all a function of what we have to spend and what we spent last year. So that also is a no change budget. So if you move on to page 25, we come to the mayor's recommended special requests. This is a document of special requests, not all the special requests that were.
Mr. Gross, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I was just trying to find where I saw what was the grand total, just so for those who are in the public. Page 24.
Page
Yeah, it's right at the top. This is just strictly for informational purposes for those that are in the public, so they can understand that last year's adopted budget was 90,676,490. What was expended was 87,484,907, and what was requested was 94 million for this year, 94,341,217. And the mayor's recommendation is 93,988,482.56. I know you said that at the beginning, but I just wanted everyone to know where they can find that, and that is on page 24. Okay.
Page 24, and it's also on page 1.
Yes. Special request, page 25. Thank you.
This is a list of special requests recommended by the mayor. It is by no means the only special requests that were received, but they are the only special requests that the mayor has recommended. And so I'd like to try to go through these and kind of group them together, although a little differently than the way they are on the page. But there are basically 2 or 3 different categories. The first category are just plain out promotions. We have 3 positions or three positions where the individuals within that those positions are working at a level that's out of title, which means, in civil service, you have certain responsibilities and based on the title of the job, you're responsible to do that level of work. If you're given additional work and higher responsibilities, that's called working out of title. And in that situation, what we're recommending, and quite frankly, what we're required to do, is to move those individuals to another title, which more closely reflects their job responsibilities. So when we hire new people, they always come in at entry-level position, no matter what job they're doing. And if they take over the work done by someone who left, who was at a higher level, by definition, they walk in the door working out of title. But civil service only allows you to move those people within certain ranges into certain jobs. So these individuals we're being recommended they're currently keyboarding clerks, excuse me. And there is one that I sent out that's not on this page, but that I did send out yesterday. And that is for within the clerk's office. So all 3 of those positions, the mayor's recommending them to be moved up 1 level from where they are. If they're keyboarding clerk 1, they're going to keyboarding clerk 2. If they're keyboarding clerk 2, they're going to keyboarding clerk 3. So those 3 positions are recommended by the mayor for your consideration.
And I do just want to point out that on everyone's first line, the date of hire is not correct. Mr. Gross, can you just verify that?
The first individual, that particular individual is
2020.
That is not their date of hire. It is a different date in their life here, but it is not the date of hire. You're right. That person was hired about 1.5 years before that.
Okay.
On a part-time basis. So that is the other category is basically a new category where the mayor is recommending that, and we've actually started to do this to actually have personnel assigned on nights and weekends in our parks and public space, so that there's someone official on the scene, if you will, during the evening and weekend hours, to make sure that as things occur, the more people you have and you have people out there, people have questions, conflicts occur. There's somebody there that's official to at least observe what's going on or help mitigate or mediate whatever might be going on, or just answer questions. So that is, you look down, there's park safety officers. It's a part-time position. The intention is to have 2 people on, again, nights and weekends. And that's for 35-2. The other category is our salary adjustments. And that's based on, again, either additional responsibilities or inequities that the administration has observed and calculated that the administration believes needs to be addressed. In this situation, there's part-time and full-time. The part-time is a little bit easier. We are, for the part-time inspectors in the construction department, all of them, which now we're down to 2, we're recommending that their salaries or their hourly rate go from $37 an hour to $46 an hour, $45, excuse me, $45 an hour. Reason being, we just can't get anybody to work for $37 an hour anymore. We need to do that. We have openings that we need to fill, and people, whenever we talk, these are people that with licenses, and when we talk to them, that they just, no one is interested. We probably have the 2 that we have are the last 2. They're only here because they're here already, and that's why they're staying. So that's something we feel very strongly we need to go up. The balance are individual positions that the mayor feels that, again, either because of additional responsibilities or because of inequities that have developed over a period of time, that they need to be addressed. The first one is zoning officer, planning supervisor. That's an increase of $10,075 the mayor is recommending for the year 2021. I'm just going to show you. The municipal department head, currently the mayor has acted and made an acting municipal department head of the health department. And he's made a recommendation to make that permanent. And that is in this, in here as well. That is a new position and feels very strong. We've been operating it now under about 2 months, and it's working out very well. And the mayor recommends that and requests that the council approve it on a permanent basis. And the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4 are based or recommendations made by the mayor for the police chief, fire chief, and 2 deputy police chiefs in recognition of their responsibilities, their responsibility they've been given, additional responsibility they've been given, as well as their statutory responsibility, and to deal with inequities that have developed over a period of time.
Councilwoman McCartney. Can't hear you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought I had unmuted. I had to mute because there are branches smashing on my deck right behind me here. In zoning and planning, we know how much work needs to be done there. So I can appreciate that with the zoning officer there, but is there more work to be done? I mean, just putting additional funds here in this line, there needs to be more support in that department. So is there something else that we just didn't get to yet?
Yes.
That's one question. And number two, the building and code enforcement, are those part-time employees? Two
Yes.
right at the bottom of page 25. Those are part-time, right? And I do remember seeing an email about the clerk's office. Will that appear somewhere along the way? Because I don't see that on this page.
When I sent that email, there was an attachment in there with all the information from that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Council President, Mr. Gross. So, Mr. Gross, you've been working on this overall HR plan reorganization for, I don't know, a year or two now. So as we discussed earlier, this is like a piece of that. My question for you, again, be patient with me because I come from school board land, where anyone who's not on a salary guide would have a contract. Now, would these or would this now require our chiefs to have a contract or a written contract?
We would anticipate whatever council approves within this budget with these special requests, that would be translated into a budget, into a
contract. And what about the deputy chiefs?
Them as well. They used to be in the PBA contract. As PERC decided that they were not members, they were no longer to be members of the PBA, and therefore they're not represented by that contract. So we would anticipate contracts for them as well.
And to my understanding, so these positions aren't moving with our salary ordinance. So that's why they'll be on separate contracts.
Well, they'll also do a salary ordinance either way. You know, that the contracts will solidify the terms and conditions of employment. That is not done by a salary ordinance. Salary ordinance just is the authorization to pay.
Yeah, that's what we have the other employees on. Okay, so you'll solidify that in a contract,
right,
that they will sign off on. Okay, that was my question. All right, thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Council President. So I'm having some difficulty with these special requests, not all of them, but a few of them. With regard to the zoning officer first, it is my understanding that this is the only department head that will be making under, I believe, 115,000 or so. And I'm curious.
If I could, I don't interrupt you, but I do want to make it clear. This position is not a department head. This is a supervisor over planning and code enforcement. It has supervisory responsibilities, but it is not a department head.
Okay, so it is my understanding that that may be the actual title. It is my understanding that this is the highest employee in that department. Is that not accurate? Mr. Gross?
You say, I'm not sure.
Is she in charge of this department?
I'm sorry? She's a supervisor of the department. That person is the supervisor of the department.
Okay, so I'm having I understand that this was an issue last year, and this approximate same increase was voted down last year. Is that accurate also?
That's correct.
So we're bringing it back now, and if these notes in the comment section, if I understand them correctly, is that the last time this individual had a raise?
No.
Increases. Yeah.
2015.
We really, that position was adjusted back in that date in those years. That is not, every employee, every full-time employee gets the same percentage raises along the way, in addition to any adjustments that may have had. So,
Right, so my language was a little loose. That's the last time a special adjustment was made for this particular
that's correct.
individual. All right, so, I find it very difficult to be supportive of a $10,000 increase. And I want to be very clear, I think that's not enough. I don't think that's enough given my understanding of the work in that department. But we have another individual in the health department assuming a leadership role there. And the special adjustment for them is 23.8. This individual has a higher date 4 years after the person in the code enforcement or zoning, the zoning officer. I don't understand how that makes sense.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but you have two different positions. Their state license is required, that is required in one position that isn't required in the other position. That's not to say that there aren't qualifications in both positions. There are, but you have to look at the market. You have to do a comparison to what people in similar positions in similar communities make. There's not, and again, with similar responsibility. This particular situation that there is for you tonight, someone moving from a supervisory position to a department head status, department head position. So you're talking about two different positions, and you really can't compare the two.
So when I look at the org chart that you provided to us, and I'm looking at planning, zoning, construction, and housing. This page is not numbered, but it's probably the 4th or the 5th page, maybe 6 pages in. There are 3 people on that line: the zoning officer, the construction official, and then the tenant relations assistant. The zoning officer, as far as I can tell, and again, I'm new to this, is making about $30,000 less than the construction official, with similar supervisory responsibilities, similar workflows, and still making about $30,000 less.
It's not the same. Oh, sorry.
Again, this is, you're making comparisons from one position to another. That again, you have to also compare positions to what a like position would be paid in another community, and with all these jobs have different requirements. And again, I don't want to get too much deep into the weeds. If we go much further, we probably need to start thinking about whether or not we need to do some type of a notice. But I will tell you that these positions, and we've reviewed them over the past year, and we believe that the salary structure that is in place is with the adjustments that the mayor has recommended, is equitable, and believe that it deserves consideration of the council.
So I hear council colleagues responding. I'm happy to have a discussion about it. I'm troubled by it. I think I don't know what our actual employee makeup is from a racial or gender background. If West Orange is similar to the rest of the country in general, people of color and women are paid less for doing the same jobs. And I know that there may be some seemingly legitimate or even legitimate reasons for some of those discrepancies in income. But if we're going to begin the process of addressing these inequities, I think it needs to start now. And I certainly don't want to see, someone receive a $20,000+ increase as they move into a new space, when we have an individual here who has been the subject of multiple discussions on the town council, both last year and this year, with regard to fair compensation. At the same time that we're able to increase our chief's income by over 40,000, plus the, I guess, 11 or 14, I can't remember, I'm going off the top of my head, that is just natural and normal given his given the step that he's going to take this year, and a special increase into the 457 account. Those kinds of things are problematic for me. I don't think we're going to address the inequity in pay between people of color and white people in West Orange without having a serious conversation about that. I don't think it's fair to have such a low representation by African Americans in particular, people of color in general, in our workforce. And then when we do find that some of them are disgruntled because of the level of compensation. So that's my general approach to this part of the budget. And I'm happy to hear from anyone who has a thought on that.
So I'm going to jump in because I did not realize, Councilman Rutherford, that I was not on mute when I said it was different. So the position itself is different. I'm wondering, and I know we did have extensive discussion last year with council on this, why isn't then she given the position of director so that she can be afforded a higher paying salary? Because I am having issues. I know that last year we did vote it down because we were in the beginning of a pandemic, and that was something that we decided as a whole. However, when Council President Castellino came back around to us and asked if we would be supportive, at least two of us were supportive to go ahead and move this forward. So here we are again. And I know that there are some things that that are being handled in other departments outside of our town. However, I am having a hard time looking at this and saying, well, I understand civil service. I understand that she is at the level of a supervisor and not, so therefore she cannot benefit from a director's salary. So why isn't she made a director with all of the responsibility that she undertakes to begin with?
I'm not going to get into a discussion about any individual. But I will tell you, if the question is why we would not create the position of director of that department, part of the reason is that there's an awful lot of discussion going on amongst the council about having a planner director. And so that's all, and between that and the
Economic
development coordinator potentially being a director, and all these discussions, I don't think the mayor is in a position or prepared to make a recommendation for any of these at this point, other than what he's doing now. He's made the recommendation for the economic developer. He's made the recommendation for our planner to remain the same planner and the same structure that we've had before. And we were talking about it a little bit later, but we can talk about it now. And to make sure that all the positions are open and that are open are filled, and getting back to full force, and then to reevaluate to see what the needs are at that point in time. So I appreciate that there are varying desires and opinions amongst the council on these issues. And in the while that plays out as well, the mayor has his own views on the day-to-day operations and is moving forward with that. So I don't know that I didn't address any individual here, and I'm not going to do that. But that I believe that lays out on the administration's position.
And I certainly didn't intend to, and as I reminded my colleagues not to speak outside of title, I went ahead and spoke outside of title. So my apologies. But for that title, I am having a hard time. And because that title oversees zoning, to me, that's a very different representation than economic development director or economic development manager. I still also, when I look at other positions who have started later, and I don't know if there are any certifications that are required for, let's say, the health department, municipal department head. Are there any licenses or certifications that are required for that position?
Yes.
And are those satisfied?
Yes.
Have they been fulfilled? They are fulfilled. Okay, I'm gonna just say that I in looking at this structure, I have a lot of trouble with the zoning officials' stagnant position.
Council President, if I may continue with my.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. I apologize.
No worries, it's all good. So Mr. Gross, I hear the rebuttal and certainly understand that there are some new considerations, but these are new considerations with regard to Economic Development Commission or the expanded role of the planning, the town planner. But this is an old problem. This particular one is not a new problem. Those are new issues. This is an old problem. This is something that has been brewing for some time. And so to say that these new considerations are the reason why we can't consider a director title or fair compensation for someone who's doing the work and not without the title, I don't think that's fair. And then second, when I look through many of the other departments, there are folks that are not in supervisory roles that have similar years of service, 20 years or so, that are making as much or more as the individual that we're talking about right now. So, I mean, there are plenty of people in town that are not in that do not have the same level of responsibility as this individual and are making as much or more than she, and that's problematic for me.
Councilman, respectfully, I'm going to disagree with you. The administration's position is that we do not have a situation where people are working outside of their title. And if they are, there is a mechanism for them to deal with that. And believe me, the employees, and again, I'm not going to go into any particular employee or any particular position, but our employees know what that process is, and it's a civil service process. So anybody thinks they're working outside of the title, there's a process for that. And the administration does not believe that's happening. And if it were, we would be here, except for the ones that we're recommending here tonight. So we're going to have to agree to disagree that there are the conditions that you expressed, which if we believed that was the case, that we would be doing something about it. I am happy to sit with you and go over. I've gone through all of these issues. I've gone through and looked at all of these issues in turn, that you mentioned, whether it be inequities in pay, whether it be gender and racial makeup, and I can show you the progresses that we've made in these areas over the years, in recent years, and where we stand in those issues. And I'd be happy to sit with you and do that. and any one of you or any two of you. Certainly, we can't do it as a council because obviously we can't do a public meeting. But
Well, take
I'm
you up on-
happy to do that.
Council
I'm happy
President,
to up on that.
I,
Just last point was that it's my understanding that her expanded role, she does have expanded responsibilities. And I think some work was done last year prior to my joining the council, looking for a similar position in a neighboring municipality. And the one that was most similar to this particular role
Council, can I interrupt you? We're really getting dangerously close talking about terms and conditions that would require, a decision made about closed session. I mean, it seems to me, and I don't mean to be abrupt, but I certainly can appreciate that your position, and as far as the budget is concerned, and to the extent that there are things that you don't want to support, or things you do want to support in terms of it, the discussion should be centered around that, and then make the decisions based on that. But you're now speaking towards getting down to an individual, and I think that's not what we're supposed to be doing.
right,
Well,
and
the
if I
reason
can,
bring it up-
if I can,
excuse me, let me finish, please.
I'm sorry, Councilman Rutherford, simply because legal has been trying to jump in here, and I want to hear what he has to say.
I'm
In
not,
the event that we may be out of line, I don't, because if we're talking about an employee, I understand that there should be some rights notification. That's why I wanted to talk specifically about title. And I don't want us to be in violation of any OPMA when it comes to staff or employees. So I just want to hear what Mr. Kaiser says, and I'll give you the floor.
I'm done with my comment. What I wanted to say was the reason I'm pursuing this is because I believe these issues are systemic. I believe there will always be a seemingly legitimate, and sometimes it is a legitimate, reason for these disparities. But in the end, the outcome we get, people of color in general, women in general, are being underpaid here and pretty much everywhere else. And if we're going to address those inequities, we have to have that conversation frankly. We've got to cut through some of the smoke in the mirrors and get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is, when you look at these individuals, there are some similarities between some of the folks that have issues with regard to their pay. That's the point that I wanted to make. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Rutherford. Mr. Kaiser, please.
yeah, I mean, what Councilman Rutherford is saying is certainly a valid, I understand where you're coming from. The concern I have is that you are starting to talk about things that aren't budgetary so much as policy decisions that involve individuals, and that would be the subject for a rice notice and for executive session. That they can conceivably involve litigation matters and so forth. The only other thing I wanted to point out was that for many years, and it's been many years without now, but the planning department was run by a professional planner, a licensed planner from the state, for the state of New Jersey, who happened to live in town. We have made do with a contract planner since then. And we have kind of patched and used other employees to fill in gaps. And I think that's where some of the problem comes in here. I don't know that it has anything to do with race or sex or anything like that, although I understand your argument. But in any event, these are just discussions that really aren't budget discussions. They get into other areas that we got to be careful about. So.
Thank you. Councilwoman McCartney and then Councilwoman Williams.
Well, I think I was responding to Councilman Rutherford's comments about this particular salary, because we, just for a little back history, that we were trying to be as fair and equitable as we can be starting 5 years ago. So there was an increase there in that supervisory position, and now we are continuing to do that in that position. That's really all I wanted to say about that we are addressing those issues in this in this particular position.
Thank you. Councilwoman Williams.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I wanted to kind of interject a little bit earlier so I could save us from some of the weeds that we seem to be going into. And really, it's quite simple, in my opinion, without talking about the individual, what it requires if we're not happy with the recommendation is that we need 4 votes as a council to increase that amount. So while I understand what Councilman Rutherford's objections are and his desire to, go a little bit further, is there quite simply a recommendation to increase that amount, that special request from the mayor to another number? And if there is, we need 4 votes to approve that. And so without going into the minutia of the rationale and how it may have happened, I just wanted to call for a recommendation and see if we have the 4 votes that are necessary to get that recommendation passed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Williams. I do have a question to your point for Mr. Gross. I'll ask it after Councilwoman Castellino. I saw your hand up as well.
And thank you, Councilwoman Williams. And to her point, so just real quick for Mr. Gross, because before I do make a recommendation, just so Councilman Rutherford gets a little background. So a lot of those positions which you mentioned, those positions for those staff they also have longevity. And so up until I think what was the year, Mr. Gross, 2001, with anybody hired 2001 and later, longevity was written out of the contract. It was negotiated out of the contract. So anybody hired after 2001 was not entitled to longevity. So that's why you see disparity, because of the longevity being written out for the new employees. So that's number one. Number two, the difference between supervisors and directors. Directors do not get any compensation for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gross, for comp time, and supervisors will get their comp time. Is that correct, Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Okay, with all that being said, and not to dig in the weeds, I was a proponent to raise this position last year. As Council President mentioned, I did the comparisons and brought the information back to the council last year. The salary is comparable if it was raised last year. Again, this was a brutal year. The volume has increased tremendously for the department. There's less staffing, where staffing has been depleted in the past few years, and we're going to have that conversation on the vacancies. So I would move to increase that line item by $5,000 for that individual. I think that is a fair amount that I think I hope my colleagues could comply with. There's a second, so I make a motion.
I second it.
Okay, hold on one second. I just want to write that real quick.
And again, if there's ever a reshuffling, again, the administration has to come to us with what they want to do with the economic developer. If you look at, again, Councilman Rutherford, going back to you, looking at that organizational chart and seeing the responsibilities above. And if you go back and look at the email I wrote to Mr. Gross yesterday on how, do you plan on Mr. Greigel filling in those gaps? Again, that's why I don't want to go, too crazy with this, because, we have to see where we what the recommendation is from the administration.
Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote on that. Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
I'm going to say yes, but I also want to clarify that by saying that last year when the raises came up, this had nothing to do with gender or race.
Yes.
Because it was during that period that I voted no on all of the special requests that came in. So I really did want to make that point as last year.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams.
Yes.
Okay, Council President Matute Brown.
Yes, and I'm going to take a little bit of privilege here just to kind of share that when Councilman Rutherford discusses race and gender, I don't want my council colleagues to take it as if that was the reason that the decision was made. What he is referring to is that there is a systemic problem and we have to address it. So while we may say that individually, that's not why we take the positions we take. There are systemic issues that everyone has to address everywhere, simply because of the nature of who we are and how we came to be. Councilman Rutherford.
Just to follow up on that, systemic means that no matter what the individual within the system, whatever their intentions are, it doesn't matter. The system is set up a certain way. And we've been conditioned by the system to accept certain outcomes over the course of time. And I could point to some other things, but I won't because we're probably going to be here a lot longer. So I don't want you guys to think I was trying to point to anyone individually as being racist or sexist. That's not the intention. But we do operate within systems that tend to work in that fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have any other, Councilwoman McCartney?
So when we started this conversation about the special request, my initial question was that I did see an increase for this particular office, but I was asking if there was support to go with it. I still don't see that. It said it was going to be addressed. I don't see that in this column, and I do not see it in the open positions. So just I do agree, I think with people working home, I know permits are increasing dramatically. I understand all the work that's being done in this department and the inspections that have to get done, but I still don't see where the support for an employee in this, I don't see where that is. So if you can show me that, please.
Can we, Mr. Gross, talk about that with all the other open positions so we can get through this special request page? Mr. Gross?
I'm sorry, yes.
So we'll talk about all of the supports for that office, and you'll bring us up to speed with all of the other open positions, but I'd like to get through the special requests.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So is there any other discussion on the special requests? If not, we'll move forward to the open positions.
I actually do. With respect to the municipal department, again, similar issue. I'm looking at the data hire. I know you did confirm that there were certifications for that position, but don't we still have, I mean, on the organization start, we still have a department head for that office.
No, we do not. No, that's, there is no, currently he is that person is operating as the acting department head and not being compensated for it.
I thought so that person who's acting is not in the salary. It's
in as a special request.
No.
The person has his regular salary, but they're in an acting position, and they're not being compensated additionally for the acting position. If that person was, this is the salary that would be made. This is the salary that's in our salary ordinances for that position.
Okay, so can you tell me what the base salary is, not for the acting position? Because I do recall that this matter came before council on a resolution for consideration, and council did approve that increase at the time because of the added responsibilities for recycling. I recall it was not that long ago. So I'd like to know what is the base position, base salary for the current, not the acting.
Hold on a second, I'll look that up.
Thank you.
In the back of the book. $109,272.
That's the current base salary. And then my other question was that I know that we have a health officer. So that's the same department, but we're creating a different title for that same office. So this title would have the title of Municipal Department Head, Information Technology Recycling Coordinator, Clean Community Coordinator. But we do have a health officer still in that office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what is that health officer's base salary?
159,218.
I'm having a hard time considering this base salary, considering the fact that we recently approved a stipend in addition to the base salary for the added responsibilities, and we have still a health officer in that same office earning $159,218. So I am going to yield the floor to Councilman Rutherford, but I'm not supportive of this. Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you, Council President. That is exactly my issue as well. Do we have an idea of how long we're going to be paying essentially two people at that level in that same department?
Again, I don't think that we're going to have discussions about terms and conditions of employees, individual employees. The mayor's made this recommendation based on a restructuring that he has put in place and believes that it best meets the needs of the township and for your consideration. So we respectfully understand that individually and collectively you may disagree, but this is the recommendation from the mayor.
Thank you. So I'm going to move that I'll make a motion that this special request, let's take a roll call. I make a motion that it's not supported.
I second.
I wanted to ask a question before we put it to a vote.
We can.
There's always discussion before the vote. That's how we should be doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the point that was just made about the resolution, that we knew we needed a recycling coordinator and this was given to that person. Do we know what that increase was on that resolution? It was only a few months ago.
It was, I don't remember exact, but I'm going to say it's less than $10,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Any other council colleagues want to have any questions or comments?
To move forward with, or I'm sorry, just to move forward with that, is that something that we want to look at? Because now it seems like the issue that you just raised, Council President, is that that was already approved and now it's coming up again.
No,
So
that's
if that amount that we did approve was taken out of this, because now it's a promotion.
so no, I'm strictly looking at exactly what I said. The fact that it's $109,972 current base salary, and we have someone in the same office earning $159,218. I'm not supportive of that. Councilwoman Castellino, I see your hand up.
Yeah, but was Councilwoman Williams, did you want to speak?
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
I didn't see her hand up. Is your hand up, Councilwoman?
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to speak. So here's my recommendation, because these get difficult because we don't, is there any way we could table this and
We already have a motion on the floor.
Okay, okay.
And the.
'Cause I like
Motion is
to-
not to approve this?
Excuse
Or-
me?
What, I'm sorry, what is the motion?
Not to approve it.
To deny the
Uh,
special request for the promotion to a department head.
Councilwoman, what were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I hear Council President and Councilman Rutherford. I also, we don't have, I don't have a clear picture of what, and I know we're limited to what we could speak to tonight. So I'm gonna deny the request to turn it down, but also like to make a motion.
Well, can we get through the one motion
Yeah,
first?
okay, to table, okay. The decision.
This is a motion to table.
Well, let me
No,
ask you this,
we
Mr.
already have a motion on the floor that needs to be addressed before we can make another motion.
And if we turn it down, Madam Clerk, and we want to bring it back or do something else, how would that, what procedurally do we need to do
You have
at
to
a
ask
later date?
Ken Kaiser.
Well, if whatever the council does with the budget, will be reflected in the introduced budget. So, if it is passed with it, then it will be in the introduced budget. If it is not, if the budget is not passed with it, then it will not be in the introduced budget. There's still a hearing to go through. There's, but I can only, tell you that's what the outcome is going to be. It is up to the council. The mayor and the administration certainly respects whatever decision, and will respect whatever decision the council makes. However, I just want to take the opportunity to stress that the mayor feels very strongly that this is the right move for the future of the department and for the township.
So I guess, Mr. Kaiser, my question is, if we vote to, wait, how can I put it? If we
So we bring
vote
it back.
to grant it, we could always take it out later on.
You're not taking action tonight. The votes that you're making are really tentative, as I see it. I mean, this is not a formal, this is a workshop, not a formal meeting.
Yeah.
It would certainly be helpful to the administration for you to make as many final decisions as you can. But at the end of the day, you're going to be able to adjust whatever votes you've taken in this hearing you're going to introduce first and adopt, right, John? I mean,
Yes.
So.
Okay.
It's a statutory process. I mean, that will occur as you go along, so.
Okay, I defer to Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you. Councilwoman Williams.
So I just wanted to remind my council colleagues, it's no different from what we just did in the last decision as we discussed that particular salary increase. We can make a recommendation to not approve the special request. And then someone on the council can make a recommendation to do something different. We just need 4 votes. So if there is an alternative recommendation from the council, I encourage my council colleagues to make that recommendation. I don't want us to continue deliberating if we don't have to. So if we're not in agreement and the majority says no, it only takes 3 votes. If we want to make an alternative decision, that requires a consensus vote of 4 members of our council. So, it's just that simple, but that's just how parliamentary procedure works.
Absolutely. That's why there's a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, please.
Okay, Councilwoman Castellino,
I'm gonna say no for now.
Councilwoman McCartney,
No, if we're going to revisit this, so make a motion to revisit.
so you're voting no on the motion? Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Yes.
Council President Matute Brown.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried.
Thank you, council colleagues. Are there any other discussions on the special request that, or questions that you have on the special request?
I'm sorry, what just, so we, that,
They made a motion to deny the special request for the promotion
Okay.
to the department head.
gotcha.
At this time.
Any other questions from my colleagues with respect to this, the remaining special requests before we move on?
The only comment I would like to make is that I appreciate the letter from the mayor explaining the special requests and the lack of contracts that these particular employees have. I just am curious on how we handled this before, if there have never been any contracts. John, how did we do this?
Well, with the deputy chief in particular, they were covered under the PBA contracts. So they, when they were removed by PERC, that's really what kind of
Okay,
stimulated this discussion. Realized they were no longer had contracts. Then we looked at it and realized that not only they didn't, but the chiefs didn't either.
right, okay.
And it's so that's how the
That
discussion.
it just occurred. Okay, thank you. I do appreciate the letter explaining that. Thank you.
Councilwoman Williams, your hand is up.
No.
Okay. Councilwoman Catalina.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I'm glad to see the park safety officers there. Chief at a later date. I just, just want to just discuss with you, Mr. Keough, how, the police department will, support them. Because I assume they, on time to time, they may need support, and I'd like to know what the protocol would be with that. So nothing tonight, but just something down the road to talk about.
Be happy to sit together and hammer all that out. We're all on the same team, so whether they work for Billy or they work for the police department, we all have the same objectives in mind.
Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Okay, so I guess we can move on.
Okay. All right. The next page is
Open positions.
I moved.
Open positions, page 26.
Yeah, I was down in the detail getting the salary for somebody.
I appreciate that, John.
I apologize. I'm out of the.
Okay.
I apologize for the delay.
No, it's okay.
Sometimes these computers aren't as fast as you'd think they are.
I'm working by candlelight over here.
I went to.
You lost power?
Oh,
Power. Oh, God. Everybody charge your cell phones.
We're done with special requests. The next is the list of open positions. The positions you see there, some of them have been filled already. This is not intended to be a discussion on a point by point. The administration has left these positions in there, some of them because we're unsure whether, ultimately make a decision to fill. Some of them because we're having difficulty getting people to serve. We have filled the position, an open position in the planning department. We're interviewing for an inspector in the planning department this week. And we did fill a position in the purchasing agents. They start next week. So we're making headway. We're starting to get more and more activity, whether it be because you all have been asking people and or just in general the job market the job market from the employer's perspective seems to be improving. So these positions, a couple of them we're looking to modify. One in particular, the assistant who was a assistant director of public works. We're looking for that to be modified to be an assistant engineer. and to hire someone to start the process of absorbing some of the historical knowledge from Lenny to someone else, and to give him some help, quite frankly, moving forward to make sure that we have a lot on our agenda the coming year, and we think that having an assistant engineer, the time has come. It's something that's been on my list and our list for a while, and I think the mayor has come to the conclusion that it's the right move, and that is our intention, to hire that position, to use the funds that are in there to do it.
Great.
Before we move further, just for the benefit of the public, because I know things take life on their own and sometimes are misconstrued. When Mr. Gross said these positions, we're trying to fill these positions from, the job market and those who we may recommend. That's not about nepotism. That's just simply about spreading the word that the township is hiring. So I just want to be very clear. And
I apologize. I certainly didn't mean to.
But I know that these things can take on a whole different meaning on social media. So I just want to be clear. And I was going to also add that unfortunately, those who I've reached out to, and Councilwoman Castellino and I have spoken about this, and John, you and I have spoken about this, that, we've got to be more competitive, and that's all I'll say. Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going back to my question about where is the support in zoning and planning department. I still don't see that even listed here in the open positions. We're giving an increase. We just approved an increase for a supervisor. I would like to know who are the employees that will be supervised.
Well,
right, where there are no open positions there, and
when we're at full staff, there are 2 clerical positions that support the citizen boards, and there are 3 code enforcement inspectors.
Okay.
That come under this department, under this portion of this department.
Okay, so out of those 2 secretarial positions, I'll call them, the zoning secretary, planning secretary, are there both positions are full?
We've over the past 2 months, we've hired 2 people into there, so that we have one's been there for about 6 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks, right. And another one just started this week.
Oh, okay.
And we have 2 inspectors, and we're interviewing a 3rd this week.
Excellent. That was my question. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Castellino.
So very happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So the inspectors, do they come, do you look for people with experience, or what's the training time? Anticipate it would take like about a year to get an inspector up to speed if they come in without any experience? I think that number one, there's no, at this point, we're not getting anybody with experience. We're not getting from anybody with experience. And so we're looking at people without experience. Sure, it's going to take a year to get somebody to full up to speed, but I think, probably realistically, 3 to 6 months, you're going to have somebody that's 75% up to speed. It's going to take time, but it's where we are, and there's not much way around that. Certainly, we think that it's going to give relief, some level of relief to getting things done, even if it's adding more help to clerical from time to time. So there are. This is part of the growth process. And the bonus question, is there enough town vehicles on hand? Because when we hired our last inspector, we couldn't get him up and out in the field because we didn't have enough vehicles on hand. Are we caught up? Will Is
That-
that an issue? Would that be an issue this year?
That will not be an issue.
Okay. And last comment to go backwards, and I'll, you know, I don't want to take too much time, but very happy to see that change for the assistant for the engineering. You know, we've needed a succession plan for that department, and really happy to see your administration is putting that in motion. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Mr. Gross.
Really, there's, as far as the open positions are concerned, I don't, unless you want me to go through one by one, I don't know that that's, you know, we're
No.
looking at all these. I think, you know, I think you get a good flavor for where we are. And that takes us to council questions. You know, we've gone through, we've reviewed the entire budget, OE and S&W. We have gone through all the changes. We've addressed all the special requests. We've looked at all the open positions and the challenges that we have moving forward. And we're here ready to entertain any additional questions. I will check and see. I haven't heard from yet. I know we wanted to speak with Lanny Lepore. I don't know.
He's on the attendee list.
Yes,
Yes.
now may be the time to invite him in, have him talk about the trees.
All right. Deb, Madam Moderator, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Can you bring over Mr. Lepore?
Yes, I was looking.
Thank you.
He should be coming over.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, I have a quick question for Mr. Gross.
Go ahead.
Was there, I was just looking back at some notes. Was there, with the clerical position going back to zoning, was that full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
It is full-time, but is there another opening for, were you looking for part-time also, or was that filled?
We had a part-time position in there in an interim. We're certainly going to consider that as well. But right now,
Okay, so that could be additional to the secretarial. So you're going to hire full-time and a part-time.
we're going to consider that, yes.
Okay, good, very good, yeah. I think with the volume of work that's coming through the department, that would be very wise. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, Mr. Lepore, thank you for joining us. We tabbed page 12 to come back to you. So my council colleagues had some questions with respect to the shade tree OE. Council members who had questions for Mr. Lepore? Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you, Council President. I'm interested to understand why there was such a large increase in what we spent for shade tree. I am looking at page 12 for those that are trying to follow along. We budgeted $70,250. We spent $160,030.67. And now we're budgeting another $70,250. So I'm trying to understand if that number, you know, how did we get such an increase? Number one, and then number two, is that something that we need to consider in making our budget this year?
Okay, I'm looking at you're looking at page 12?
Correct.
Yeah, we had a bad hurricane in August, which required a lot of outside contractors to come in, do a lot of tree removal and a lot of tree pruning and trimming. And that's the big reason for the change for in the budget last year.
So have we been seeing, did we see that the prior year or the year before? I know we've had some, increased bad weather.
I think the last time we saw that was either 2016 or 2018 when we had a bad snowstorm that caused a lot of tree damage also. So I don't necessarily think that's something we would budget for every year. Otherwise, we're going to end up with money that isn't spent or is unnecessarily appropriated. I think if we keep the budget as we did for last year, if such a situation arises, then we work with John Gross to see how we fund those additional expenditures.
Got it. Thank you.
Did any of my other council colleagues have any questions for Mr. Lepore? Councilwoman Castellino?
So was that storm, was that a state of emergency? Was there any FEMA funds to help us with that expense?
It was declared a state of emergency. It is a federal disaster. We are in the process of seeking reimbursement for some of the expenses as allowed by FEMA.
Okay, good. When you know, let us know. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it'll be probably finished next month.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from my council colleagues?
Len, are you, yes, Mayor?
Councilwoman Castellino.
Yes, thank you. Len, do you want to, you're putting out an RFP or an RFQ?
Today, with Paula Reynolds, the acting purchasing agent, we posted on our website a request for qualifications for licensed tree expert professional services. The responses are due back, I believe, on June 8th. Okay. And I expect to have a recommendation or recommendations before the council for their June 22nd meeting.
Excellent. I also understand that with the tree amendment that you are seeing, I've heard from zoning, from planning department, that we are seeing a market increase in the applications for tree work being
yes,
done.
The word is certainly clear to everybody that any tree, even a dead tree removal, requires some type of application for either an exemption or a permit.
Excellent.
Len, talk a little bit about, if you would, just high level of the difference between the two proposals that you're looking for in terms of the service level from each different proposal.
What we're asking for is licensed professionals to respond to one or both of a request for proposal for services as they relate to licensed tree expert services that would be required for private property. And private property includes the administration of the tree removal and protection ordinance. Private property also includes consultation with residents and property owners that may have concerns about trees on their property. And it also includes working with property maintenance for when there are concerns about trees on residential properties that may be hazardous. And I lumped those three aspects together because in one way or another, they probably all lead to the issuance of a permit or an exemption. So right from the start, I want to make sure that the resident, the property owner, knows that if there's a concern about a tree on their property or a concern about a tree on a neighboring property or some requirement for property maintenance, that the permit process is made known to them very early on, and it's not a surprise. The other aspect would be public rights of way, public property, and providing expert services predominantly for the Public Works Department and how we go about maintaining our street shade trees on open lands, our tree planting program, our community forestry management plan. Those are the aspects which take place on public property, public rights of way, and don't get involved with the permitting process. So we're asking for licensed experts to respond to each of those two requests for those that involve private property and those that are strictly public property, public rights of way.
Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you. So Lenny, in this particular case, we're talking a lot about property maintenance. I guess it's not really property maintenance, but it is property maintenance, but it is as it relates to tree. The need to have a tree care expert. Is that what you're saying? The property maintenance has to do about issuing a permit or an exemption or a violation, and it's as it relates to a tree work has to be done by a tree care expert. Is that
really, it's the tree care expert who is really the only licensed professional who can give an opinion about a tree's condition. I think, we just said a few minutes ago, looking to fill the third inspector's position in the planning department, and how this is probably going to be somebody who comes in at entry or near entry level and is trained. We don't expect a new inspector. It's difficult for the current inspectors to be experts on trees. Now, it may be one thing to say a tree is dead in the middle of summer, but it's not so easy when all the foliage is off in the middle of winter. There are certain things that tree experts know what to look for, as far as whether a tree is hollow, whether a tree is cracking or has a split in it, or whether a tree is diseased. I wouldn't want to see a property maintenance inspector err on the side of caution when perhaps a tree expert may say, no, you just need to do some trimming, reduce some of the load on a tree, and therefore we save an expense for a resident.
Thank you. Excellent.
Any other questions from my council colleagues? Thank you very much, Mr. Lepore, for joining us. And I'm happy to see that the RFQs are out and that they are two separate services that you're looking for, professional services that you're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, feel free to drop out. You don't have to hang out with us. Mr. Gross, so we were at questions from the council. Do any of my colleagues have any questions on the overall budget? Yes, Councilwoman Castellino.
Just nothing on what we went over tonight, but for the next one, we go to capital budget. I assume, Mr. Gross, you're gonna do the beautiful job that you did last year. This year, where we're gonna get some pictures of what we accomplished this past year, and with the projects that were completed, the list of projects that were completed, and then have a list of the projects that need to be completed with the new capital plan for the upcoming year.
Of course.
I look forward to it as usual. Thank you.
I echo Councilwoman Castellino's sentiments.
I love the pictures. I think it's great for the public to know where their tax dollars are going.
Absolutely.
Visual learners.
Agreed. Any other questions that my council colleagues have? Yes, Councilman Rutherford.
As a new council person, it would be helpful for me, especially since 2020 was such an unusual year, to have more historical context for some of this data. I don't know where we are trend-wise. I don't know what numbers look good or don't look good, because I have very little to compare it to. Now, I've gone back and looked at some of the other budgets, but the presentation online is a little different than this presentation, so it's a little more involved. So it'd be helpful if we could get like a summary of just some of the high points for prior years, so that we have something to kind of compare it with. That's it.
Mr. Gross.
We'll take that under advisement.
I'm almost afraid to say that's it. No other questions on the budget?
There's
Can
one
I
more.
just say something to Councilman Rutherford?
Yes.
Yeah.
In my office, I keep the budget books with the format that we were given tonight. So I don't know if that would help you to, if there's certain things that you're specifically looking for, you may want to look back on those.
I'm fully vaccinated. I would love
Yeah.
to spend some time kind of looking through that stuff in comparison with this. So thank you
Okay,
very
so
much.
just let me know when you're available and I'll make sure to be there.
The
Will do.
hard
Okay.
copies are in the clerk's office.
Right.
And they are all online going back to 2010, I believe. So there is, in this format, I started when I came here in 2011. So in this format from 2012 on, it's online. You can look at them at any time. Like I said, if you want to get actually want to look at the physical copies, that you need to go to the clerk's
Yeah,
office.
sometimes it's easier to look at the physical copy. For me, it is anyway.
And Council President, there's one piece of business left once questions are done. We had talked earlier that there would be individual up and down votes as they occurred, but at the end, anything that wasn't acted on would be approved by an affirmative vote, for everything else other than what was already voted. So that would be the last piece of business.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Oh, and then Councilwoman Williams.
Just real quick, Mr. Gross, and Councilman Rutherford reminded me of it. The jitney, your numbers that you have in this budget, speaking of trends with, I know it's running, is it running as it was when they were filled to capacity? Do you have less running? Or are you having issues with drivers? Just real quick, what does that look like for the budget?
We are going back to full runs. We have not been doing full runs, and we have not been spending the amount of money. Moving forward, we're going to have to see what the ridership is, see how, how it plays out. But we will be going back to full runs shortly, I would think. So if not,
And as far as our senior citizen runs, are they as they were? Are they less?
They were pretty much by appointment, and they still are.
Okay.
And they're, we still do the runs. So.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Councilwoman Williams.
So I just want to thank the administration for a thorough evaluation and recommendation of the budget. I want to thank my council colleagues for all of your questions and commentary this evening. And outside of those suggested recommendations and approved motions that my council colleagues have done, I move for the acceptance of the budget as it's been presented this evening.
I still had a question.
She tried.
I know you tried it, Councilwoman.
I like that. Great try.
But I know in my earlier discussions with Councilman Rutherford, we were talking about the bans and the bonds, and I asked Mr. Gross if he can just kind of break that down and give us a summary. I know you looking at it that way, it's not, you can't tell what bond, what ban is for what project, but just overall, can you just tell us the status of our, what we paid down and what we still owe? And yeah, I think that's it. And Councilman Rutherford, if you needed something else clarified, please, by all means.
Did you address Councilman Rutherford?
That was to you, Mr. Gross.
To you, it was on his.
Okay. Our net debt at the beginning of the year was 114 million. Of that, I'm just going to pull up don't guess when you can have the actual document, right?
Thank you.
Guys. Okay. Our debt is 113,576,945, and that's a percentage of 1.745%. The limitation is 3.5%. That includes all of our debt that we're responsible for. That does not mean that we've borrowed all of that amount. We have borrowed $40 million, round numbers, $40 million in serial bonds. We have borrowed $52 million in bond anticipation notes, and about 17 million that we haven't borrowed. That, just to give you a sense of the interest rates, the last bond that we did came in about 1.5%, the serial bond. I just recently did a note sale for a taxable at 0.53% and a non-taxable at 0.26%. So that's a quarter of a percentage point. So I have been, and you'll see a resolution at the next meeting, with the specifying the terms and conditions and the to sell a bond in July. I've been trying to sell at least one a year because frankly, I think it would be malpractice not to, in these low interest rates, to tie up these low rates for 15 to 20 years. And I think, that it's really important that we do so. It's a little more expensive. One of the reasons you see it go up is because every year that we do a new issue, we go from either paying limited principal or none to a full amount of principal. So that's what happened this year, and it will happen next year, because we need to make sure that we take advantage of these low rates. So I don't think it's going to last. Of course, I said that 5 years ago. So
You did. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Yeah, Mr. Gross, you're answering the question. My question is, and what we talked about earlier, Council President, was, are we? It sounds like we have about 50 million and 52 million. Is that the number you just said in bond anticipatory notes? Is that right?
Yes, 52.5 million.
And so we are, I guess you are managing a schedule to convert those into longer term debt to lock in these lower rates. Is that right?
Yes.
So you're not just rolling them into another 1 year note or less than 1 year note. You are looking for opportunities to take longer terms with some of that debt. Is that right?
It's not quite that way. We're rolling over most of them, but every year the last couple of years, somewhere between $8 and $9 million a year, I've been trying to go along with. I think last year we went 2, but frankly, I'd love to roll them all into it right now, but you can't afford it. The budget can't afford it. You'd be talking about a massive hit that the taxpayers would have to come up with. So I'm, for lack of a better term, I'm feathering them out to take advantage of it. I'm concerned, that this year was 800,000. If we did 2, that's $1.6 million. I mean, you're beginning to talk about numbers that you just can't support. The taxpayers can't support coming out that fast. So we'll probably, I hate to say this, we'll probably not be able to convert all this money in at the low, but we're going to get a good portion of it. And we're certainly going to get more than previously we had taken advantage of the low rates and not for about the first 5 years and not convert them, because it would have meant significant increase in taxes. But now we're taking advantage of it, and I suspect it's going to last another year or so. So we'll probably get another couple in. And even when it goes back, look, the reality is when it goes back to normal, quote unquote, normal market rates, you're talking 3.5 to 4 on long bonds, which is still much less than any of us with age remember the days when it was 20%. So it's not a horrible thing to be in that stratosphere, but we need to get as much of it done as we can.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point. The point was not to convert it all at once. Obviously, that's not, but to have a plan to convert it, because at some point, we don't want to get caught unawares. You know, when markets move, sometimes they catch us flat-footed. So, you know, as long as we have a plan, we have something that we can execute against and see, you know, compare on a year-to-year basis how the market's performing versus expectations, and hopefully manage those interest rates so that we don't have a big jump in any one of these, you know, future years. So that was the point I was making, and that's kind of where we were going with the conversation earlier. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Councilwoman, I'm going to give you the floor, Councilwoman Williams. Does anyone else have any other questions before? This is like the final call because I'm giving Councilwoman Williams the floor.
Other than how did the pictures come out?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
So stay tuned and get on Facebook. That's all I can say. They were so cute. They were so cute. But we're going to stay focused on business at hand. So my council president has said a last call for any additional commentary. I am going to repeat and say what I said. If there are no further questions and no further commentary, I want to thank my council colleagues for all of their recommendations this evening. I have been on these budget calls for the past 2 years. This is my 3rd year in a row. First year as an elected official. This is unbelievable. So I just want to say thank you to the public. I hope you have garnered a tremendous understanding of how we are spending your tax dollars. I trust that you are pleased with a 0% increase in the next tax year. I don't know what to say. You know, this is amazing. This is amazing. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gross.
Nice job.
Thank you for the administration for bringing us something that was palatable. And with no further ado, I ask that my council colleagues approve the remaining items that are yet to be approved on this 2021 budget. Is
I
there a
second.
second?
Okay.
Yeah, come on, y'all.
Okay, let me just do a roll call quickly. Councilwoman Castellino,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams,
Overwhelmingly, yes.
Council President Matute Brown.
Yes.
Motion is
Who's
carried.
going to be council president?
Yes, Councilwoman Castellino.
I just wanted to say, you know, thank you for this process, and not to reiterate all that Councilwoman Williams just said, but I just want the public to know, because usually we're on this call for many hours. And again, all of us did our due diligence and spent a lot of time with the administration the past, since we got the booklet almost a week ago, and thank you to all our administrators. Usually we bring them in and torture them one by one, and everyone took the time, and they all had separate conversations with all of us through the past couple days and even over the weekend. So thank you to all of them and to you for recommending us do it this way this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your cooperations, patience, and participation in those individual conversations with the department heads that we needed to speak to so that we didn't have to come back here on Thursday, but really excited about the 0 increase, and look forward to first introduction. So because we are completed this process today, we're off the hook for tomorrow, council colleagues. So hopefully you have plans, make plans, enjoy the evening, and to our administration, thank you so much for your patience in dealing with us as we went through this process one by one, as opposed to, 13 hours my first time, 9 the last, but thank you all.
Ooh. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Was it our next meeting, our council meeting? I know there was a shift. Would you like to make that announcement?
We couldn't hear you.
Our
Say
next meeting, when's our next
The
meeting?
next meeting, to make the announcement for the next meeting since this June
Yes,
6th was
so-
canceled.
June 8th was canceled because it's primaries, elections. So Madam Clerk and her office obviously will otherwise be occupied. So our next council meeting is scheduled for June 22nd. So everyone has a nice little break between now and then. So thank you for that reminder, Councilwoman McCartney. And there is a motion to end our budget workshop.
Oh,
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Have a good night, West Orange. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
have a
everybody.
good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good
And
night.
Good job, everybody.